Everyone, there we go. We'll go ahead and call the City Council meeting to order for February 4th, 2008. First thing on the agenda, as always, is roll call and determination of a quorum. Jackie, please.
LaCroix. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Hadcock.
Here.
Hurlbut. Okrepke.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Weifenbach.
Here.
Olson. Here. Kroger. Quaker.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, everyone. Just a reminder, if you have cell phones or pagers, please turn those off. We'd appreciate that. Also, if you're wishing to talk on any issue on the agenda, we do have speaker request forms right over next to Larry. Larry, please wave for everybody. Thank you. And if you'd fill those out and actually turn those into Jackie at the end of the dais, that way when we come to that item, we'll make sure that we know that there's someone that'd like to talk to that issue, and that way we don't have to worry about skipping over you. At this time, I would ask you to please rise for the invocation. Bob Hauer from Westside Baptist Church will be giving the invocation, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Opportunity to serve you in a free country, a free state, a free city. Lord, the city leaders that stand before you tonight have a daunting task of ensuring the operations of our city are done decently and in order. The collective wisdom represented here tonight indicates hundreds of years of expertise and wisdom. Lord, we ask that you would use that wisdom this night as the agenda details are brought to order. May you receive glory and honor in each of the details. Lord, thank you for this city as a beacon of light and hope to those in neighboring communities and states. They see what goes on here. This is a favorable place to live because of our city government and the ways they are so involved in improving community aspects in every situation. Father, again, may you be honored, glorified. May we do things decently and in order, known as your people. We surrender this evening to you. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And let's see, I do have one item to be placed under mayor's items. That is a resolution in support of the Olympic softball team. And so if we could add that as a 65A, please. Any additional, please turn on your light. Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two raffle requests to add to the agenda, and I don't have the details with me at the moment, but if you just add the two items, I'll get those when we come to them on.
Okay, what we'll do is we will call those 65B and C. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
I would like to, under Alderman items, notice the library boards, or the library's recognition.
Very good. Any additional items to be placed on the agenda? Any additional items to be placed on the agenda? Bill? Okay. Seeing none, the chair would look
Move
for...
to approve the agenda.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as amended by adding items 65A, B, C, and D. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Chair would also look for a motion to approve the minutes of the January 22nd, 2008 and the January 22nd, 2008 Informational Committee meeting. We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to awards and recognitions. We don't have any this evening, but I do have a reminder for everyone on the council and also everyone in the audience that our next meeting will be on Tuesday, February 19th. This is due to the federal holiday for President's Day, so we don't have council meetings on Monday, so it'll be 2 weeks from tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Now we're on to general public comment period. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at tonight's meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. Is there any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? If not, we don't see any. We will move on. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period for items 1 through 50. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. Everyone signify by saying aye. Opposed? We are in the public comment period for items 1 through 50. We do not have any speaker request forms for items 1 through 50. Anyone in the audience care to talk about any of the issues 1 through 50? If not, the chair will look for a motion to close the public comment period. We have a motion and a second to close. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to the consent calendar, items 1 through 50. Chair would ask if any member would like any of the items to be removed from the consent calendar. If so, please turn on your light. Let's go to Marcia Elkins.
Item 13, please.
13, very good. Let's go to Lloyd LaCroix.
Items 39 and 45, please.
Very good. Let's go to Dirk Jablonski.
Thank you, Mayor. I would request that item 8 be pulled.
Item 8, very good. Alderman Deb Hadcock.
Number 21, please.
Very good. And Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 17, please.
Item 17. Okay, very good. So the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar items 1 through 50 with the exception of 8, 13, 17, 21, 39, 45.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item number 8, and I think that would be Alderman LaCroix. Could you please read that in for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Identifies Sewer Enterprise Fund as the funding source for the Franklin Street Sewer Replacement Project. And I would move approval with the changes as coming from the reserve fund. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That would be my motion.
We have a motion and a second for approval, and the funding source being from the Enterprise Sewer Reserve Fund.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question for the Public Works Director. A meeting or so ago, we canceled a project that was on the CI capital improvements plan for this year. Does that mean that we can go forward with that project now? Is that what that means?
Let's go to Dirk Jablonski, our Public
Thank you,
Works
Mayor.
Director.
Yes, it does. No projects will be delayed because we'll fund this out of reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to item number 17, and that's legal and finance. If Alderman Hadcock could please read that in. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped one. 13, please. And that would also be Alderman LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. Approve a request by Dream Design International to consider an application for a road name change from Samus Trail to Moon Meadows Drive, more generally being located west of South Highway 16 and south of Samus Trail. And motion would be to continue to the February 19th at the staff's request.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval per staff's recommendations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any questions on that motion? Let's go to Marcia Elkins, our Growth Management Director.
Thank you. The reason for the continuation is that the Register of Deeds would like to have 2 separate resolutions. So we'd just like to be able to bring those back so you can review them beforehand.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. I'm sorry. Yes, for continuation. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Now we are on to item 17 and Alderman Deb Hadcock.
17 is to acknowledge the report on executive session rules, and I move approval on the acknowledgement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to acknowledge. In discussion on that motion, Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to, first of all, thank the city attorney for the time that he spent researching this issue. I have just a couple of comments. And first of all, it does appear that the city is limited in what we can do. I had originally asked that we consider recording executive sessions similar to other states, including Iowa. Many other states have been recording executive sessions for many years. However, the rules under state law do not specifically allow for that to happen, and there would really need to be a set of laws introduced in the legislature in order to allow the city council to keep those minutes and then to protect those minutes from executive session from being revealed except under certain circumstances. I do think, though, that that's something that the council should collectively pursue with the municipal league. This is not just about protecting us, it's about protecting our constituents and future councils as well. I also believe that we do not provide enough information prior to going to executive session. It seems that we have taken a step backwards per the open meetings ruling, but once again it appears that the legislature needs to act in order to fix it. So I want to encourage our local legislators to strongly consider fixes to allow Rapid City and other cities to have more open meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. The motion on the floor is, let's see, it is to acknowledge the report from our city attorney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 21, please.
Yes, 21 is a request City Attorney's Office to prepare a resolution of support for the legislation authorizing municipalities to permit sidewalk cafes, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Deb Hadcock.
I just want to thank a team of people, Malcolm Chapman, for helping me bring this through, and to the House, of course, first, and then the Senate. In the House today, it passed out of 75 votes. We had 60 votes, and Brian Dreyer has carried this bill and has worked very hard for us on this bill. A team of people that helped were Jason Green, Yvonne Taylor from Municipal League, who has just been awesome, Brian Dreyer, of course, Malcolm Chapman, the Chamber, the CVB, and Bob Fuchs helped lobby the appear with me. So I just like to thank the people that have worked hard on this, and I think it'd be awesome for the revitalization of downtown. So thank you very much. And I should give Mayor Hanks applause as well, because he has kept me up on what is happening in Pierre, and he knew people, and he did also the police chief did an awesome letter, and so did Mr. Hanks. So thank you very much to all the people that have been working hard on this.
Thank you, Deb. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question. This talks about a resolution of support. Do we have that resolution? I don't see it in my packet, and I don't see it electronically attached either.
Let's go to Jason Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The direction would be to prepare the resolution. That would come back to you.
And it does state under 21, requests the city attorney's office to prepare the resolution of support.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Jason, anything else to add? Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. That's asking the city attorney's office to prepare a resolution of support for legislation authorizing municipalities to permit sidewalk cafes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item number 39.
39 is to authorize the Mayor and Finance Office to sign agreement with DTH LLC to allow the acceptance of public improvements before the completion of sidewalks for Rainbow Ridge subdivision. And I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on the motion. Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I had this one pulled so I could abstain from this. My wife works from one of the owners who owns another business she works for, so I'll be abstaining from the vote on this. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes with one abstention from Alderman Lloyd LaCroy. Item 45, please.
Approve the following abatements. Roderick for $937.94, Cheryl Mauser, $1,167.66, and Pennington County, $118.80, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Lloyd LaCroy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll also be abstaining from this one because Sheriff Mazel is a relative. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes with Alderman Lloyd LaCroy abstaining. We are on to, that's the end of the public consent calendar. We are on to items 1 through 66, and the chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 1 through 66, please. 66. I'm sorry, to say 61. I'm sorry, 51 through 66. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to open the public comment period for items 51 through 66. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the public comment period for items 51 through 66. We do have a speaker request form from a Deborah. Is it Weinert? If you could, on item number 59.
Yeah, I did that.
Deborah, if you could just come forward, identify yourself for the record, please.
My name's Deborah Weinert. I'm a financial advisor with the firm of Edward Jones. Speaking regarding item number 59 on the agenda, the deferred compensation option with Digital Retirement Solutions, I would be the broker-dealer on that, or broker-dealer of record on that personal contact for all of the city employees. I've spoken with members of the fire department as well as Jason Green, Kevin Tome, and just wanted to make you aware that I was here in case you had questions regarding that item.
Very good. Thank you, Deborah. Any other comments on items 51 through 66? If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public comment period. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item 51, please. That'd be Deb.
51 is a first reading of ordinance number 5365 to update the city's campaign finance disclosure requirements by amending Chapter 2.32 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to hear from our city attorney. I know this is first reading, but this will take effect with this June's election. So for those folks who are going to take out applications and run for city council, how will they be notified about the changes and what they need to do to comply?
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance will be included within the packet that's delivered to all candidates that turn in a petition. So whenever someone turns in a petition for one of the municipal offices, that will be a part of the information that they're given. It will also be published in the usual manner, so everyone will have notice of the changes that are contemplated by this ordinance.
Okay, Alderman Chapman, you still have the floor, sir.
So this will be published. This won't be published by the time folks can come in and actually take out packets to run, so I think that's March 1st. This won't be published until sometime after March 1st.
Let's go to Jason Green, city attorney.
I'm not sure exactly what date it'll be published. It will be sometime after second reading, which should occur at your second meeting this month. So it could be published before that date. It won't be effective before that date, but it will be effective before the election. So it will apply to the upcoming municipal election, and it will be provided to everyone that turns in a petition, so everyone will be made aware of the changes.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any further discussion? Further discussion. Alderman Tom Johnson.
Yes, can we just speak to what the changes are, as long as this is the public forum?
Sure. Did you want Jason to give us a recap? Is that what your request?
If you would, Mayor, please.
Yes, very good. Jason Green, city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, the South Dakota legislature repealed the chapter of the codified laws, or the bulk of the chapter that allowed municipalities to impose the requirement on candidates for municipal elections to comply with the state's disclosure requirements. They reenacted them in a different chapter, so that's the primary change, is to reference the new chapter. But we've also taken the opportunity to address a couple of other issues that have come up, specifically with regard to runoff elections. We've clearly stated that if there is a runoff election, anyone who's involved in the runoff election must file their termination statement 60 days after the runoff election. All other candidates must file the termination statement 60 days after the election that they were a candidate in, the annual municipal election. So that will be explicit in the ordinance. There won't be confusion about that going forward. We've also addressed a couple other issues with regard to investigation and the authority that's granted under the South Dakota codified laws to the Attorney General will be vested in the city attorney. That seems like the appropriate office to investigate any violations. Other than that, the changes are simply terminology, essentially, and to incorporate the new requirements of the statute.
Very good. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir. Okay, very good. Further discussion. The motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 52, please.
52 is the first reading of ordinance number 5366, an ordinance amending section 1706 of the Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International Incorporated for rezoning from general agriculture to heavy industrial, located southwest of intersection of Marlin Drive and Creek Drive, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 53, please.
Number 53 is a first reading of ordinance number 5367, an ordinance amending section 1706 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International Incorporated for Signature Homes LLC for rezoning from low-density residential to medium-density residential, located north of Country Road, east of Cobalt Avenue, and west of 143rd Street. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 54, please.
Number 54 is a first reading of ordinance number 5368, an ordinance amending section 1706 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International Incorporated for Signature Homes LLC for rezoning from low-density residential to medium-density residential, located north of Country Road, east of Colbart Avenue, and west of 143rd. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 55, please.
55 is a second reading of ordinance number 5360 regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2008, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 56, please.
Number 56 is the second reading of ordinance number 5361, adding banquet hall with on-sale liquor establishes as a conditional use in the general agricultural zoning district by amending section 1734030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 57, please.
57 is the second reading of ordinance number 5362 regarding supplemental appropriation number 2 for 2008, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this is the ordinance that has the library funds in it from the county. Just a thank you and a kudos to all those who worked on behalf of the residents of the county to make sure that they receive the best library services available. And I think that those best library services are best delivered through our Rapid City Public Library. So to everyone who worked hard on that, just thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Chapman. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to Legal and Finance Committee items. Item 58, please.
Number 58 is to authorize the Mayor and Finance Office to sign renewal agreement with Black Hills Electric Cooperative and West River Electric Association to reduce the gross receipts tax paid by each from 2% to 1%, And the motion would be to send back to Legal and Finance on February 13th.
We have a motion and a second to send this back to Legal and Finance. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 59, please.
59 is to authorize the Mayor and Finance Office to sign Section 457 plan document with digital retirement system, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first thing I want to do is point out that the authorization to sign the agreement should be with Digital Retirement Solutions rather than System. That's the official name of the entity. Secondly, I want to describe how this item came forward. It comes to you from Legal and Finance without recommendation at my request because I wanted a little more time to take a look at the plan document. I've done that and I'm comfortable with it. This item was presented to Community Resources upon petition from more than 60 city employees, and it takes at least 60 employees to get something set up as a payroll deduction. This will authorize all city employees to have a third option for use on their 457 plans, and I recommend approval based on my review of the plan document. Ms. Weinert is here if there are questions for her.
Thank you. We also have a light on from Alderman Deb Hadcock.
This was presented at Legal and Finance, and I appreciate the fire department and the people that had done the work on this to find this information. And it takes a team to get things done, and you guys did well. You got 64 people to sign it, and I know more would. You just needed 60, so you did a lot of work on this, and we appreciate it as a city council that you have done this work for us. So it helps us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval, and I'm going to go to the motion maker. I assume that you're all right with the change from systems to solutions. Very good. And who made the second? Very good. Everyone clear in the motion. Motion is for approval. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 60, please.
Number 60 is a disposal of land at intersection of Elkville Road and Highway 44, which would be the Wally Byam site, and then go to Jason Green, please.
Okay, let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet is a handout of what I'm displaying on the overhead here. What we have here is Highway 44 running in this direction, and Elkville Road runs through here. The parcel that's highlighted here is the city-owned parcel. And this is the plat that was recently approved. Lot 1, which is outlined in green, is the city-owned parcel. The pink or purple with the BW in the middle is owned by Bank West. You may recall that Bank West approached the city about an easement, and it was the council's decision to plat off a portion of land and consider putting that up for sale. In order to move that process forward, we need to do a couple things. First would be to declare Lot 1 surplus. Second would be to determine which method you would like to use to dispose of the property. Recently, in other areas, the council's had good success in disposing of property by listing the property with a real estate broker. If that's the route the council wants to go, I need direction on how you would like to go about selecting a real estate broker. We've used an RFP process in the past, and that would be available also. So at this point, I would be looking for some direction from the council.
Very good. Thank you. Any discussion or questions from the council? Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jason, I believe we have a realtor on retainer. Maybe that's the wrong language, but I know we've used a realtor before. Is there some reason why we can't use the current realtor that
we certainly could request Mr. Rathbun to give us a cost for listing this property for us.
I'd like to hear what the rest of the council say, but I think I'd be comfortable with that.
Very good. Any further discussion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. And before I vote to declare this surplus, I'd like to make sure that there aren't any long-term ramifications of letting go of this particular piece of property. And then if we do sell the property, I want to make sure that the taxpayers get the best possible price. Can you address those two issues?
That's Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you. I don't know that I can really address the long-term ramifications. If this piece of property, which is about 1.5 acres, is sold, obviously it will be gone. The city won't be able to use it. This is a part of a much larger parcel, approximately 110 acres. As far as an asking price, I think that the council will need to have some more discussion about that before the listing agreement is signed with whomever the council decides to hire to do that.
Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Jason. Is it fair to say that this tract was fairly isolated? Is it the green on our sheet here? This green is the tract that Bank West owns, or is the tract that we're looking at selling?
Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. The green is the tract that the city owns, the parcel that has been platted off. The pink or the purple on the screen is what is already privately owned. It really has an access problem in that on the plat where it says Lytle Lane and the railroad right-of-way, where those two converge, that's really the only point that has legal access at this point. So in order for Bank West to get access to the property, they would either need an easement across the city's property or probably more likely to acquire this piece.
So the bottom line is that it does not affect the overall use and the access to the larger piece of the city's property.
Jason.
In fact, it may enhance the access because in order to transfer this, we will have to ensure that the subdivision improvements that are required will be made, which includes constructing the street and other utilities. So the access to the parcel is likely to be enhanced.
Anything else? Very good. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, I don't have a problem with bypassing the RFP and going to Terry, but I would like to have an assessment of the value of the property of that area. So I would make a motion to bypass the RFP, use Terry, and we need to get an assessment of the value of the property.
Okay, let's go to Jason Green because I think he has an answer to that.
I think that council may recall that we do have an appraisal of the parcel, and there are a couple of options we have. We could ask the realtor for a commercial market analysis, and we could also establish the value by setting a board of freeholders. So either one of those methods is available.
Okay, let's go back to Lloyd LaCroix.
That would be my motion, the commercial.
Let's go to, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Jason Green.
And if I can clarify, the motion is to direct my office to prepare a resolution declaring this parcel surplus and to contact Mr. Rathbun to arrange for a brokerage agreement on this parcel.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the commercial.
And a CMA, I believe.
CMA.
Yep. Okay. Any further discussion? Lloyd, did you have anything else?
No, that's
Let's
it.
go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually support going out for proposals. I think the last time we did, we had a somewhat innovative way that realized a lot of success. That was the property I believe we sold by the visitor center. We sold a little piece of ground for a lot more than we paid for the whole big piece, which was pretty positive for more than that. So I think that number one, we should go out for proposals. Number two is, I've heard some of the land values being brought by here, and I will tell you that at least the land values that I've been told by our appraisal, I would not support selling that property. I do think that you have a negative impact on the piece as a whole by actually selling off some of the frontage. So in other words, I would tell you that I think that the evaluation that came back was far under what the value of that land is. So I would be opposed entirely if we used that evaluation or that appraisal. So my idea of what that land is worth and what I've been told is worth is very much so. In fact, some time ago, we actually had a realtor come to this council and offer approximately 3 to 4 times what this appraisal came through years ago. So I don't put much stock in the appraisal that I've seen. So I may or may not be interested in disposing of this property, but first of all, I think we need to determine the best way to dispose of it. Secondly, I think we need to make certain that the city receive compensation based upon the value. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, the motion does include the city attorney's office going out for a CMA, which is a commercial market analysis. And so in essence, that is a broker actually going out and doing comp works to establish a market-based price. So with that, let's all go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Alderman LaCroix, for making that motion. I think we need to move along with this. I know this has been going on almost since I've been on the city council, and it's probably time to get this thing moving. So if we can expedite this as much as possible, that would be a very good thing. So I support the motion on the floor.
Very good. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is to direct the city finance or the city attorney's office to contact Terry Rathburn and for a brokerage agreement, and also to ask for a CMA. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes with one no from Alderman Tom Johnson. Thank you, everyone. We're on to Public Works Committee items, item 61, and Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Sorry? 60A and B, that must be the raffles. You put them under.
I have those at 65. Yeah, I was going to say you were messing me up here. I have those at, I know it's been a long day, but I had those as 65B and C. We have 65A as softball, 65B as raffle, 65C as raffle, and 65D as library. Okay. Very good. We are on to 61, and Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. Approve change order number 3 for the Civic Center Multi-Purpose Edition bid package number 2 project to Sampson Construction for an increase of $17,517. Motion be moved to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes with one no from Alderman Sam Quaker. Item 62, please.
It's authorized the mayor and finance officer to sign amendment number 3 to a professional service agreement with Forefront Design and Company for Civic Center expansion project for reimbursable costs for an amount not to exceed $26,008.74. Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Without belaboring the point that I made at Public Works last week, I'd just like to reiterate my concern that this did not come up when the other discussion of copy costs came up last fall. And I don't think that it's unreasonable to have expected that this discussion would have at least been mentioned at that time, and I'm disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes with one no from Alderman Sam Quaker. Item 63, please.
Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign agreement to share sanitary sewer main construction and engineering costs with Joel and Rebecca Anderson to construct an extension of the public sanitary sewer in accordance with the current city ordinance and specifications for 810 West Boulevard North, and I'd move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 64, please.
Item 64 is to deny a request by the city of Rapid City to consider an application for a special exception to allow 10 light poles in the hydraulic floodway on track 27 of the Rapid City Greenway tracks, more generally described as being located at 125 Waterloo Street. And this comes from Public Works Committee with recommendations for denial. I'd move for approval for discussion.
Second.
Okay. Just for clarification, you move for approval of the recommendation, or you
I don't know quite the motion to make for it. I'd like to open it up for discussion, is what I'd like to do.
I'm glad I'm not the only one confused here. Okay, Jason, help us with a motion so we can debate this.
I think it would be clearer just to state what action the council wants to take. So I would suggest construing the motion for approval as a motion to grant the special exception.
Very good. Is that the intent of the motion maker?
Yes.
Very good. And we have a second. Okay, very good. Everyone clear on that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve, which in essence would override or basically reverse the decision. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some, in the discussion that came forward in regard to this particular item, I was at the Planning Commission when this was discussed, and there was certainly some confusion in the answers that I received in terms of whether this was the safety issue being addressed by the neighborhood. And I'm not very comfortable with forwarding this at this. I mean, I think I support the concept. I obviously know that a lighted bicycle path is important to the neighborhood, but my desire would be that we not go forward with this, that we send it back for further discussion, just so that I understand the ramifications of this particular item. We've had discussion about what's appropriate in the floodway, in the hydraulic floodway, and I just ask that my colleagues allow this to have some further discussion so we clarify this issue, so we know exactly what we're talking about, and have some answers that make sense, and some comparisons with other sites where there's activity going on in the hydraulic floodway.
Thank you. Next speaker is Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Anytime there is a discussion of a safety issue versus a safety issue, it becomes somewhat of a challenging discussion. The reality of this is that what this comes down to is the safety of the pedestrian public every night in this neighborhood versus concern over a 100 to 500 year flood. I certainly agree that we should be concerned about the ramifications of a flood, especially considering the history. But I also believe that there is a balance here, and I believe that this is an appropriate balance, and that the 10 light poles, well anchored, will be certainly no more dangerous than any of the very old trees in that neighborhood. So unless there's new information that indicates that it'd be dangerous to put these poles up, I think the council should proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a pretty tough time with this at Public Works. That's why I kind of struggled with the motion for it. But I've been on the floodplain committee for the last 4 or 5 meetings, and anytime you bring up the floodway or something, we really don't want to do anything with it. As Sam said, is we need to find a balance. You know, and our forefathers, I don't think they ever expected the greenway along the creek to become as beautiful as it's become and as used by pedestrians as it has. And if they'd seen Memorial Park and Roosevelt Park now, I'm sure they'd be proud of what they enacted. Some of the biggest concerns that we've gotten through the floodplain is the force of the waters that come down above Canyon Lake. And so this is not only a safety factor for the pedestrians walking around down there, but I believe it's also part of enriching our community. And so I'd urge my colleagues to support this motion to pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
I'd just like to say I respect the decision on the Planning Commission and the staff. That is their job, and then they have taken a look at this. I have looked this up, and I also asked a geological engineer what the effect with this would be with the 10 light poles. And a tenth of an inch, and was told a tenth of an inch that this would rise was essentially no effect on the rise of the water. The debris was like any other debris that would be coming down from there. It was 10 more poles, I understand, but it was like, I was told, 10 small trees. Another thing is we have been working with the neighbors for 1.5 years in Ward 2 and Ward 4 to see what they wanted in Roosevelt Park. And the 2 essential things that were most important was the lighting and the gazebo. And we talked about it, and we talked about it many a times. And I just think this is a good thing. It's a safety factor, which is a safety issue, I should say, which is with the lighting. the safety issue, I think, for the debris and the poles. They are covered with anything that's in the floodway or the floodplain. It has to be a special thing with waterproofing and the things that are done there. So the poles are done to specifications. Long story short, I think this is a good thing. I support it. I know my constituents do, because we've had many meetings, and I would appreciate the support on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval to grant a special exception to allow 10 light poles in the hydraulic floodway. Any further discussion? Does anyone wish to speak before Alderman Olson speaks for a second time? If not, we will go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you. I recognize that this is a safety issue, and we're weighing the safety of those who are using the bicycle path versus, and the neighborhood that is adjacent to this, particularly the neighborhood along Philadelphia Street. And the question I would have is, when we're comparing this to other sites that are in the floodway, what are we looking at in terms of, as we move west in the floodway, what are the other lighting situations that exist, and are they in the floodway? I mean, are there any basis for comparisons of things that are already there? I'm just very cautious about things in the floodway, and I think that's caution that's extremely important, because when you look at Rapid Creek, it seems pretty benign, but we know the potential for real danger is there. And I would not like to be a part of the city that in some time down the future says, well, we wish we'd done X, Y, and Z in regard to the floodway. So I would like to know if there are other similar lights that are actually in the floodway, so we're just doing something that we've already done in other sites. And if someone could answer that question, that'd be very helpful for me.
Let's go to Marcia Elkins, our Growth Management Director.
Thank you. The closest parallel is probably at Canyon Lake Park, where several years ago a similar exception was submitted, and staff recommended denial of it, as did Planning Commission. However, the council overrode that. I believe there are 6 lights similarly located in the hydraulic floodway at that location versus the 10 in this locale.
Okay. Karen, you still have the floor.
Thank you. I do occasionally ride this on my bicycle, and I certainly know that I know that I'm looking at Mr. Case's email, which came a few days ago. He was noting the tunnel, which is essentially the bridge that goes under it, where you go under Rapid Creek, and the path follows that. That is very well illuminated. It has good lighting. I suppose occasionally those lights get shot out, but on every occasion when I've been there, they're always bright, and so that's not an issue at all. So what you're telling me is that we've already approved this. It's really a hard one for me to support, because I certainly don't want this neighborhood or anyone that's downstream from this to have, in some future time, be affected in a bad way.
Karen, was there a question there?
No, I think Marcia's answered the question.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Next, let's see, Alderman Deb Hadcock. Does anybody wish to speak before Alderman Hadcock speaks for a second time? If not, Alderman Deb Hadcock.
I respect what Ms. Olson's saying. I was here for the flood as well, and I think it's a good concern. The lady that is the geological engineer is my sister, and she also was here for the flood. She teaches geology, and she took all the Planning Commission and all this information, so she looked at all of this and looked at this to make sure that what my decision was based on facts. And that's why I had brought this forward. Again, she teaches geology. She has went through the flood and has been here for the flood, and she also teaches some of the stuff that has happened to her students from what she has learned from our flood in Rapid City. So based on that information, that's where I got my facts on this, that if this was going to affect the floodway in a very negative way, that I would also not vote that this was a good thing. So again, I would hope we support this, and Ms. Olson, it is a very good thing that you are saying this, and I appreciate this on the flood issues, and I am on the floodplain committee, but I did check the information, but I do thank you for your information and that you want to know the facts on this.
Thank you. Next, we also have a light on from Lloyd LaCroix. Does anybody wish to speak before Alderman LaCroix speaks for a second time? If not, Alderman Lloyd LaCroy.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't drag this out much longer. I just wanted to recognize Marcia Elkins for all the hard work that she's done on the floodplain committee. And the Rapid City has been a model citizen, or a model community for the recovery of the flood. And we've been recognized by that from FEMA. And I think we've done a very good job from keeping residential out of the floodway, and we've done a beautiful job with working on Rapid Creek. That's all. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to approve or grant a special exception to allow 10 light poles in the hydraulic floodway. That is the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We're on to item 65 and Mr. Jim Preston with our bids. Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have the one item this evening for the bids. It is for one 100-foot aerial ladder truck for the Fire Department Emergency Services Department. We received 3 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Clary's Safety Equipment Incorporated, an amount of $727,295, as this is the lowest responsible bid. Chief Rolfling did forward to each of the council members an email outlining why the other 2 bids did not meet specification. He is here, can answer any questions, but the recommendation from the staff is accept the bid from Clary Safety and Equipment.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for missing the email, but I didn't see it. I was wondering if Chief Rolfing would be willing to give a brief synopsis.
Chief, can you give us just a very quick breakdown of why the bid 2 and 3 were not responsible bids?
Chief Rolfing, Fire Chief, Mr. Mayor and Alderman, the Clary truck is actually a Pierce apparatus, and as you can see, it met all our specifications except for 4. And as we go down, Fire Safety USA, both were E1 trucks. The less expensive truck was a demo built in 2007, and it looked to be a demo that they put together. They traveled around the country. It's about 10,000 miles on it, and it's undersized as far as transmission, engine. It comes nowhere close to our specs. It looks like a truck that E1 put on the street to have for a demo, and then when they got ready to sell it, that they could sell it at a little lesser price than one of our spec trucks. The second one is actually an as-built truck from E1, and it also doesn't come close to meeting our specs either, the $712,500.
Very good. Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Chief. On bid number 1 from Clary's, it appears, although it meets most of the specs, it doesn't meet 4 of the specs. Is that how is that taken into the definition of being a responsible bidder? And are those 4 specifications that they're not compliant on? Is that a problem?
No, sir. They're minor issues, and those are things. Every one of the bidders takes some sort of exception, and to have only 4 is really unusual. So we're actually thrilled that we can get a truck that we just have to make a few. Oh.
Just a reminder to our new chief that all questions and answers come through the chair, but I didn't want to rule you out of order on your first meeting.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
No, that's all right. Sam, did you get your question answered?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for playing. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
It's somewhat difficult for me to vote to give it to the highest responsible bidder when they didn't meet all the specs. I'm curious, are there only 2 providers of this kind of an apparatus in the
Chief?
country?
No, sir. We sent the specifications out, and we only received two companies with the 3 bids. There were some other companies, I think we sent it out to 5 or 6, and those, they passed on the opportunity to bid on the truck.
Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
Was there any communication as to the ones that did not choose? Did they say we couldn't bid this, or you spec'd it out of our range, or did they just, no communication?
Chief?
I believe there was some communication. Chief Kobus talked to them, and a lot of them, it was a time frame issue. A lot of them just respectfully declined to bid on the truck.
Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
Just a comment. I'll likely be in the minority, but I'm not going to vote to award the bid to the highest bidder when none of them actually met all the specs. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a light on from Alderman Kieran Olson.
In view of the fact that this is always a very large purchase for the fire department, I thought it might be helpful for the chief to talk a little bit about the situations in which the city sends a ladder truck to those situations where that's called for, because I think it's rather frequent. And in addition to that, the advantages of this kind of a vehicle in terms of the fire insurance rating that individual citizens enjoy because of this protection.
Chief, if you could quickly go ahead and recap.
Okay, the ISO, what Alderman Olson was talking about, requires us to have 2 ladder trucks in service in town. A ladder truck, it has the 100-foot aerial, so we use it for high-rise operations. We use it to actually as a tower to throw water. That's also the truck that we use. We have search and rescue equipment on. We carry most of our ladders when we have to ladder buildings for the safety of other firefighters who are doing interior attack and those kind of things. It complements our pumps, and the pumps are the guys that actually do the interior fire attack.
Okay. Kieran, you still have the floor, ma'am.
Of our insurance benefit that comes from having this kind of capability?
The IS, oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Chief.
Throw it at me next time. Excuse me. The ISO provides us with a rating that provides us with those lower rates. And we just went through an ISO not too long ago, and I'm not sure if it's a 2 or a 3. I would have to check. But one of the ISO issues was the number of aerial ladder trucks we had in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Well, let's take a roll call, please.
LaCroy. Aye. Johnson.
No.
Adcock.
Aye.
Hurlbut. Okrepke.
Aye.
Chapman.
No.
Eifenbach. Olson. Kroger. Quaker.
No.
Motion passed 6-3. Is that correct, Jackie?
That's correct.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
the
you.
discussion. Okay, we are on to the items from Mayor. And let's see, I do have an item 65A, and in your blue binder, there should be a copy of the resolution recognizing and supporting the Olympic softball team. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second for approval. What this is, this basically is just a resolution in support of the women's U.S. Olympic softball team that will be playing in Rapid City on July 15, 2008, and just welcomes them and thanks them for selecting Rapid City as one of their sites. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 65B, which is a raffle, which we don't, Jason, help us out here.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a raffle request that was presented to my office on the 31st of January. It's a raffle by the Naja Shriners and the Rapid City Cosmopolitan Club for a raffle to be held on Sunday, February 17th. We've got a number of prizes here. It looks very standard, and my recommendation is for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 65C, another raffle.
Thank you, Mayor. This is also one that was presented to me on January 31st. This raffle actually took place yesterday. It's for the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology student chapter of the Institute of Industrial Engineers. Fundraising raffle for them. Again, this looks very standard. It is after the fact, though, so I recommend simply acknowledging that they presented the request on time.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to acknowledge the request was on time. Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 65D, and let's go to Alderman Karen Olson in the library.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We were alerted to the fact that our librarian, Greta Chapman, announced that she'd received a call from the columnist author Nancy Pearl that she's putting together a list of the top 10 libraries in the United States for USA Today, and Rapid City is on that list. That's prestigious in a very important way. And so I would recommend that at one of our succeeding meetings, we have some public presentation and recognition of the very high quality of our library service and the way in which this Rapid City Public Library is serving our immediate community and our broader community as well.
Thank you. I don't believe we need to take any formal action on this, just an announcement. Very good. Thank you, everyone. That gets us through all the items from the mayor and council items and liaison reports. We're on to item 66, and that is our 2012 update. Dirk, were you going to run us through that?
I can, Mayor, if you'd like.
If you would, and as always, what typically we do is any changes to the 2012 plan will be outlined.
Thank you. First of all, I would draw your attention to item 14. It's listed as residential streets. There was a change although this was not a change in what really happened. It was a correction in the form. There are committed funds on the residential streets line item. One is for the design of St. Andrew Street, and the other one is for the design of 43rd Court. It's expected that each of those construction costs will be about $300,000 a piece. In addition, we are working on Robbinsdale Phase 1, which we also expect will be about $300,000, and that should be later this year. Next, item 29A, the Dahl Arts Center remodeling and addition. There was an additional expenditure of $4,365. The total 2012 funding is $3,250,000. The total to date expended is $3,195,700. Excuse me. And finally, item 32, the Civic Center Memorial Park expansion. Two expenditures, one for $18,500 to Forefront Design Consulting Contract Amendment 2. The next for $14,970 to ATS Incorporated for material testing and inspection. The total budgeted in 2012 funding is $25,600,000. Expended to date is $25,467,650. I'll entertain any questions or comments.
Very good. Any questions? Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a question, but just a comment. Every year we have an annual 2012 meeting, and it's getting to be close to that time to do so. I know I had Kay send out just an information item to see if a certain date would work for council members. And so far we've had very limited response, so we don't know if that date would work. So I'm just asking council members to check their emails as it relates to this item in particular and get back with Kay if that day will work for you. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go next to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Alderman Chapman for facilitating that 2012 meeting. I would encourage the council to have the discussion that we've talked about in the past, kind of a wash-up of the 2012 program, ideas that we may have that may improve the program, and talk about some strengths and weaknesses. So I think it can be a lively meeting, and we can talk about a number of things that some of the council people have talked about from time to time and privately. So I would hope that we bring a lot of ideas to that meeting. Thank you, Alderman Chapman.
Thank you, Alderman Johnson. Any other comments or questions? If not, the chair would look for a motion to acknowledge your report.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to acknowledge the 2012 report. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to our public hearing items. These are items 67 through 115, and the chair would look for a motion to open the public hearing on items 67 to 115. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are in the public comment period. We do not have any speaker request forms for items 67 through 115. We will move on to the continued public hearing consent calendar items. These are items 67 through 87. And we will turn to Marcia or any of the staff. Do we expect any of these, are we looking to have any of these pulled from the consent calendar?
No, thank you.
Okay. How about from the council? Wow. Okay, the chair will look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, or the public hearing consent calendar, items 67 through 87. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That takes us to the end of the continued public hearing consent items, and the chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing. Very good.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing for items 67 through 115. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we are on to the consent public hearing items 88 through 94. Does anyone wish to have any item 88 through 94 removed? I think we have 88 and 90. Is that correct? I think we needed to pull 90 also. Is that correct? Okay. Chair would look for a motion for approval of the consent calendar with the exception of 88 and 90.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent, consent public hearing items 88 through 94 with the exception of 88 and 90. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 88, please. And where is Deb? Don't see. You want to go? Could you read that in, Bill?
Number 88 is Laurel Hawkins, DBA RAXX Billiards, 2310 North Maple Avenue, for retail, on-off sale, malt beverage license, no video lottery. Continued at 11/19/2007 and 12/17/2007 council meeting, and I'd move to continue to 2/18.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to continue this item to the February 18th meeting. Let's go to 19th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Considering I made that announcement earlier, I should have probably known that, shouldn't I?
It says 18 on mine.
Yeah. We're not having a council meeting that night.
My mistake, Bill.
Yeah.
And number 9,
Whoop.
I'm sorry, I need a vote.
Okay, the motion on the floor is continue this item to the February 19th city council meeting. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 90, please.
See Youth and Family Services for a special beer and wine license for an event scheduled February 28th, March 1st, or February 28th, February 29th, March 1st, March 2nd, 2008 at YFS 120 East Adams Street. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval, and just for clarification, we need to change the date to February 29th, 1st and 2nd, since this is a leap year.
So it was in the 28th.
It'll be that is correct. So is that all right with the motion maker?
Yes.
Okay. And the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. The motion on the floor is to approve with the dates being February 29th, 1st and 2nd. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to oppose this, but I will say that this looks a little bit awkward. Could we at least have an explanation as to what this license is for?
Okay. Let's go to, we do have a light on from Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Youth and Family Services has done a fundraiser dinner theater at their facility for the last couple of years, just in part to raise money for the organization and to showcase that wonderful building, which was part of the 2012 process as well. And this is just that. They'll have a dinner theater supper on actually the 29th of February and March 1st, but I think that we probably should leave the second date in there as well. But that's what it is.
Very good. Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Motion on the floor is for approval as amended, stating February 29th, March 1st, and 2nd. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That is the end of the consent public hearing calendar. We are on to item number 95. This is our non-consent public hearing items. Yes, that's part of it.
93.
Yep. Lloyd?
All right. Okay, I was like, there's a request by Spurlock Consulting, Inc. for Sharon Norman for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light, conduit, water, sewer, and pavement along Old Folsom Road. The section lines the collector street of Norman Ranch Road as per chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. This is located southeast of the intersection of Old Highway 79 and Old Folsom Road. And motion be to deny without prejudice.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny this item without prejudice. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 96, please.
There's a request by Dream Design International for an amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from general agriculture to light industrial, located southeast of the intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive. And motion be to deny without prejudice.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny without prejudice. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's see. Item number 97, please.
There's a request by DDI in company for an amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from general agriculture to office commercial. And this is located southeast of the intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive. The motion be to deny without prejudice.
We have a motion and a second to deny this item without prejudice. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 98, please.
98's request by DDI for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from general agricultural to general commercial. And this is located northeast of the intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive. The motion be to deny without prejudice.
Do we have a motion and a second to deny this item without prejudice? Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 99, please.
There's a request by DDI Inc. for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from general agricultural to light industrial with a planned industrial development. And this is located southwest of the intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive. And motion be to deny without prejudice.
We have a motion and a second to deny this item without prejudice. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 100, please.
There's a request by DDI Inc. for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from general agricultural to office commercial with planned commercial development. And this is located at the intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive. And motion be to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 101, please.
There's a request by DDI International Inc. for amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from general agricultural to general commercial with planned commercial development. Located northeast of the intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive. Motion be for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 102, please.
It's a request by the City of Rapid City for the amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from agricultural to heavy industrial. And this is located at 5406 Old Folsom Road. Motion be for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 103, please.
Authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign a waiver of the right to protest a future assessment for the installation of curb, gutter, street, light, conduit, additional pavement or additional extension of water or sewer mains as it abuts the unplanted portions located southeast of the intersection of South Dakota Highway 79 and Minnesota Street. Motion be for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 104, please.
Is there a request by Forefront Design, Inc. for Moyle Petroleum Company for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install curb, gutter, water, sewer, street light, conduit, and sidewalk on Burridge Road, and variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install curb, gutter, water, sewer, street light, conduit, and sidewalk on Minnesota Street as per chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. This is located at the intersection of South Dakota Highway 79 and Minnesota Street. Motion be to approve in part, deny in part, as per the Planning Commission recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve in part and deny in part per the Planning Commission's recommendation. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question for Marcia.
Okay, please ask your question.
As we are waiving the right for these curb and gutters, can you put this one up on the board for us?
Sorry, couldn't hear you over the.
Oh, I just wanted to see what we're waiving on this curb. This is Minnesota Street. Seems to be a residential area.
Actually, this is to the east of Highway 79, as shown on the slide.
Okay.
At Minnesota Street, and so this is commercial and industrial. The north-south road that is shown there was the frontage road, if you will, that the Department of Transportation installed. So
Okay.
most of the waiving of improvements have to do with the fact that DOT constructed that frontage road without all of the normal curb and gutter and sidewalk improvements in that area.
Thank you, Marcia.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Very good. Motion on the floor is to approve in part and deny in part per the Planning Commission's recommendations. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 105, please.
To authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the waiver right to protest future assessment for the installation of curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light, conduit, water, sewer, and pavement along Sunset Vista Road and the access easement as they abut located at 3500 Sheridan Lake Road. Motion be for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 106, please.
There's a request by DDI International, Inc. for variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install curb, gutter, sidewalks, street light conduit, water, sewer, pavement along Sunset Vista Road, and the access easement as per chapter 1616 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, located at 3500 Sheridan Lake Road. Motion be to approve with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Deb Hadcock.
Marcia, are they putting septic in here, or are they connecting to sewer on this development?
Marcia Elkins, Growth
Marcia.
Management Director.
I don't know that I know the answer to that question. Bob, do you recall?
You know, there's a letter in here that was a concern that there was going to be septic tank instead of water or the sewer connected on this property.
I apologize, I'd have to pull the file to answer your question.
I guess that would be my issue here, is that, can we continue it till the end of the meeting, Marcia, to get that information? That
Is
would be
that
my
substitute motion?
substitute.
Okay, we have substitute motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have substitute motion and a second to take item 106 to the end of the agenda after item 116. Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Karen Olson.
I was just going to comment that do we want to just move 107 to the end of the meeting as well?
Let's dispose of this, and then we'll go to 107, probably do the same thing. Very good point, thank you.
106.
Everyone clear on the motion? The motion on the floor is to continue item 106 to the end of the agenda. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 107.
It's a request by DDI Inc. for variance to the subdivision regulations to allow platting half right-of-way along Sunset Vista Road as per Chapter 16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, located at 3500 Sheridan Lake Road. I move to continue this to the end of the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue item 107 to the end of the agenda after 106. Any discussion on that motion? On that motion. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
I guess on this one, I don't think there needs to be a continuance. It was more for the septic and the sewer line on 106, and I didn't have an issue on 107, unless somebody has an issue particular to this item. I would urge my
Offer a
colleagues.
substitute motion?
Yeah, to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a substitute motion for approval of item 107. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We're on to item 108, please.
There's a request by CTEC Engineering Service for Lawrence Dickey and Janice Morgan for a variation of right-of-way on 40-foot parkway dedicated to the public across lots, located at 3782 East Highway 44. Motion be to approve with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve with stipulations. Any further discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 109, please.
There's a request by Dennis and Janine Waltz for a vacation of right-of-way on Lot 1, located 3401 West South Street, and motion be for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 110, please.
Is a request by FFZ LLC for a vacation of right-of-way on Kirkby Lane, right-of-way adjacent, and this is located at 1830 West Main Street, and the motion be to approve with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 111, please.
Let's see what that ordinance.
One 111 is the second reading of ordinance number 5349, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International Incorporated for a rezoning from General Agricultural District to Light Industrial District, located southwest of intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive, and I deny without prejudice.
We have a motion and a second to deny this item without prejudice. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 112, please.
112 is the second reading of ordinance number 5350, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International Incorporated for a rezoning from General Agricultural District to Office Commercial District, and a move approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 113, please.
113 is the second reading of ordinance number 5351, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International Incorporated for rezoning from General Agricultural District to General Commercial District, located northeast of intersection of Creek Drive and Marlin Drive, and I approve with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 114, please.
114 is the second reading of ordinance number 5363, and an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by City of Rapid City for a rezoning from no-use district to low-density residential district, located west of Reservoir Road and northwest of North Pitch Court. And I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 115, please.
115 is the second reading of ordinance number 5364, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by the city of Rapid City for rezoning from no use district to heavy industrial district located at 5406 Old Folsom Road, and I approve with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's go back to item 106, please. And let's see, I believe that is Alderman LaCroix. Could you please read that in? Marcia, you ready for this?
Do my best.
Okay.
136.
Item 106, please.
Is a request by DDI International Inc. for variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light conduit, water, sewer, pavement along Sunset Vista Road and the access easement as per 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. And this is located at 3500 Sheridan Lake Road. Motion be to approve with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
Marsh, is that okay if I ask her a question?
Absolutely,
Okay.
please do. Marcia, you got an answer for us?
Thank you. We do not believe that there are sewer lines in this vicinity based on what's existing in the area. If I could clarify, there's an existing 2 tracts of land. One is a large kind of area. This is where the reservoir is that sits on the hillside about halfway up to Skyline Drive. And then there's an existing lot that is here. My recollection is that this home here is on a septic system, but I could not absolutely guarantee that. This land, large lot, is undeveloped. There is no sewer that extends up this frontage, and they're asking to have that waived. And we believe that they would anticipate placing septic systems on it. In discussing the potential purchaser of the property about where their home site would be, it would likely be at this end of the property. So I can't absolutely, but I would anticipate septic systems.
Okay, so
Deb, you have the floor.
Sorry, it's 10.47 acres into 2 residences. I guess my concern would be how close is the sewer system for these guys, because, we subdivide once we divide, and pretty soon we have 20 septics up there, and that's kind of what we're trying to eliminate. I guess my question again, Marcia, is how far is the sewer from this residence?
Marcia?
Again, there's one existing residence on this piece of property, nothing on the other property. What they're doing is moving the lot line to approximately this location. And the sewer, as Bob's pointed out on this map, is approximately here.
Okay, I guess that's my concern, and I probably will be voting no, because I would think you would extend the sewer down for that reason. And again, otherwise you're going to end up with septics, and if you look at all the homes that are in that vicinity, that's pretty close to a lot of existing homes with having septic tanks up there, which we are trying to eliminate. So I guess that's my concern, and the subdividing later. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
The letter from the constituent that Deb is referencing came from a resident who lives on the first street. And did I hear you say, Marcia, that you assume those townhomes that are right, whose backyards back up to Sheridan Lake Road, probably all have sewer system as well, sewer and water, as well as the street?
It's my recollection that those were required to have sewers part of this development, and I'll watch the gavel. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything? Karen, you still have
So
the
my
floor.
follow-up question, is it possible to, I guess I share Deb's concerns about this one. Is there some way that we could take another look at this?
Marcia?
The practice of the council and the planning commission has been, when there's no increase in density, not to require the developer to place improvements of this nature. And as such, because there is one lot here and another large lot at this location, by relocating the boundary over to an area further to the east, they would not be increasing the density. They'd go from 2 lots to 2 lots. Now, we have had discussions about the potential future re-subdivision of the project at some time in the future, and indicated at that point in time, if there was increases in density, then typically the City Council and Planning Commission would require that improvements such as extended paved roads, curb and gutter, sewer and water would be required as part of the development.
Karen, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in other words, what you're telling us is that at this point in time, but if additional density would occur on this property, which would be either platting that second or building a home up there, that when that density increased, would that trigger then the necessity of hooking up to the sewer and water?
Marcia?
The way that's been interpreted in the past is that they're now entitled to 2 home sites. One has a home on it, one does not. In the future, if they were to subdivide that so that they went beyond those 2, at that point in time, they would be required to install the improvement.
But not until. So in other words, they build another house, that house could have a septic system as well.
Marcia?
That would be consistent with what action you've taken in the past.
Boy, I guess can I make a comment, Mr.
Please.
Mayor? I mean, I guess I would have some concerns about this. This is you know, this is city, and we need to take every opportunity to make sure that people are hooked up to our sewer system. And so I don't know what the next step would be, but I'm in agreement with Deb on this one, that this needs to be looked at more closely before we approve this one.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
I guess my concern is, wasn't there a lady that came in here that we denied? I apologize for not knowing her name. And we made her, because she wanted to just put another house or do something else. Do you remember that, Marcia? And we said she couldn't do it.
Marcia?
We've had a number of people who wanted to add an additional lot. I just want to split my lot and add one more. In this case, they have 2 lots, and they just will end up with 2 lots. And they very specifically decided to do that to avoid the improvements because they were trying to be consistent with the actions of the council. So I think you're being consistent, to my recollection, of what you've done in the past. I guess I'd also draw your attention to the size of the proposed lots.
But, and I understand that, but they always subdivide. But isn't number 12, you said the sewer is where number 12 is? And that's in front of where the person already has a septic?
Marcia?
I believe it's to this location, which is where these 4 townhomes are located.
So my point is, again, the sewer line is right there, and we're going to have them put a septic. And if we keep going out, we're going to have to keep saying, okay, septics are fine because we did it for this lot. And I know they're just splitting it, Marcia, but again, the sewer line is right by them, so.
Just for clarification, Marcia, there's already a septic on the premises, is that correct?
That's the best of my knowledge. I have not checked the file specifically.
Yeah. But there's no request to add an additional septic system on this lot?
They'll have to.
If I might,
Please.
when they go to build a house, and I'm of the understanding it will be all the way at the eastern end of this, further up the hill, at that point in time, they would come in for a building permit on that lot, and I would anticipate it would also be on a septic system. Unless the sewer line is extended fully up the section line to the eastern end, they would probably be outside the 400-foot distance.
I was just going to bring that up. According to our own city regulations, if you're farther than 400 feet from a current main, you are not required to actually extend that main. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Deb, I'm sorry. You
Right.
still have the floor, ma'am.
No, that's okay. And I understand that. I was thinking they were next to each other and not up by the reservoir, and I misunderstood that. But again, you still have, there's many houses out there, and now we're going to start doing septics. If there's any way that they could do a sewer, or we can do some type of plan that brings that out there. I know we have, if I'm correct, Dirk, some type of system that is trying to eliminate, and we have money in our account to make this. This would be one of the projects that if we need to do this, it would be a good time to do it instead of start doing septics right next to sewer lines.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Karen Olson. Oh, let me ask, does anyone wish to speak before Alderman Olson speaks for a second time? If not, we'll go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Mr. Mayor, I heard you say 400 feet that you had to build a sewer line, or 400 feet you had to hook up to the existing sewer line.
We'll go to Marcia Elkins, our Growth Management Director.
Off the top of my head, my recollection of the requirement is that if you're building a home and you're more than 400 feet away from a public sewer, then you're allowed to place a septic system, assuming that you can install that in accordance with all the regulations, meet perk tests and the like.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what the mayor had said.
Okay. Very good. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval with stipulations. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes with 1-0 from Alderman Deb Hadcock. We are back to item 116, and Mr. Preston, our bill list, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to point out to the council that there is a corrected bill list in your blue packet, as well as on your electronic agenda. The bills for tonight total $5,596,116.42. There are no additions or changes.
Chair, look for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and approval for approval of the bill list per the correction for a total of $5,596,116.42. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney. Do we expect executive session?
Yes, we do, Mayor, and I'd appreciate it if the motion would be to go into executive session for the purposes allowed by SDCL 1-25.
We have a motion and a second to go into executive session as permitted by SDCL 1-25-2. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're in executive session. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we have a motion. Oops, waiting for the mic. Okay, we have a motion. There we go. We have a motion and a second to come out of executive session. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
A+, 10 to 9.
10 to 9.